Okay, so this video is going to give you an overview of the Real Disabilities project. So this is the writing intensive project that'll meet that requirement for this course. And it's essentially comparative analysis of disability representation. So this assignment is going to engage you in analyzing two films that have disabled characters in them. So your task is to think critically about how disability is represented through these films and through these characters, and then thinking about, as you learn about the models of disability and different disability stereotypes, how those show up in these films in ways that either perpetuate negative stereotypes of disability or challenge those negative stereotypes. So the goal is to deepen your understanding of how media shapes public perceptions of disability and to encourage thoughtful evidence-based analysis. So if you click this, you'll go down to instructions and guidelines, and it gives you a step-by-step of this project, okay? So I want you to avoid simply summarizing the plot, okay? So I want you to focus your time on critical analysis and evidence-based arguments. So you're going to have to provide a little bit of the plot just because, you know, the audience that you are speaking to may not have seen it. So you'll have to give just a brief summary of the plot for both films. But the goal of the overall project is for you to really dig in deep to how disability is represented in those films, okay? So this comparative analysis should be 5 to 7 pages, single spaced and 12 font. The most accessible font is Arial or I think it's Canvas Sans. Open Sans is fine. So you're going to choose two films that have disabled characters. And then at least one of the films should feature a character with a disability portrayed by an actor with the same or similar disability, if possible. That is not always possible because film doesn't always hire disabled actors to play disabled characters. So if you can find one, that's great. If you can't, that's all right too. But I did want to put that in there in case you are able to find one. There's a couple of really good ones out there, but one of the pieces of the analysis that you're going to engage in will be to talk about whether the disabled character is in fact disabled or not in real life. So again, it's great if you can find a film that you want to use that has a disabled actor in it, but if not, that's okay. It's not a requirement. I just want you to be thinking about it. So you're going to address several things in your analysis. One, you're going to address disability representation. You're going to talk about the models of disability and use them in your analysis along with the different stereotypes and archetypes. Then you're going to talk about whether the representation was authentic or not, how intersectionality factors in, and then there's going to be a section for a personal reflection. And then I want you to add a section that's kind of a Rotten Tomatoes review. So this project is meant to be fun, and it's intended to give you, it has to be writing intensive, but I wanted to create something that was actually enjoyable for you to write about. And so, yes, you're going to have to cite some sources when you're talking about the models of disability and the stereotypes of disability. The likelihood is you'll use the you text to support some of the things that you're saying. So you do have to support your claims, but your analysis is yours. So how you think about the films and how you think about disability being represented, that's yours. So it's anyway, it's intended to be more engaging and more interesting than your typical research paper. Okay, so think of this assignment as you're talking to an audience and you want to prepare them to see these two films, what they should be looking for, what's good about them when it comes to disability, and what's maybe not so great about them. So it's more of it is an opinion piece, but you're going to ground your opinion in real things, like thinking about the different models of disability and different stereotypes. So you're going to ground your opinion in what you're learning in this class. And so you will cite your sources in that way. Okay, so you'll start with the disability representation. So you're going to research and summarize the importance of disability representation in film. And this is where I'm saying that cite your sources. You're going to find this information in the U text, and you can also find this information in other articles. You're going to explain how disability has historically been represented in film, literature, and art. You can also, again, use our textbook, but also then thinking about the different podcasts you're listening to, the videos that you're watching, and then do some outside research as well. Explain the role of media on attitudes toward disability and other marginalized identities. You're going to create a section that talks about the models of disability, because thinking about this as like, think of your audience as people who don't know these models and aren't taking this class. So maybe you could even envision family members or friends, like really target an audience, a specific audience. Maybe you have roommates or like a few family members that you could think of as you're developing this project, so that you can think about, okay, I'm going to have to tell them what the medical, charity, economic, social, and human rights models of disability are before it's going to make sense to them when I refer to them in my project. Then you're going to analyze those films based on the stereotypes, whether or not they reinforce those stereotypes, and give really specific examples. Okay, so like if there's a particular part of the film where this stereotype shows up, explain that. Like, in this scene, so and so does this, and that really reinforces this stereotype. Okay. And then discuss the impact of those stereotypes. So in other words, if the film is challenging negative stereotypes, then you want to say that that's really a good thing for the community, the disability community, but also for the society at large. When we challenge negative stereotypes, that's always a positive thing. Then you will talk about authenticity and representation. So the idea is that the disabled community would like representation to be authentic. Part of that is they would prefer it if disabled actors played disabled characters. That means that the role in the film was going to have a more authentic representation. It's not always the case. So one of the things that will really help you with this part of the assignment is to look up what the disabled community feels or thinks about this particular film. And I'm going to actually do a separate recording to kind of show you the different types of research that you can do and how to find different things. So hold for that. Then the thing is, these don't have to be separate sections either. You can talk about the authenticity and representation as you're talking about the stereotypes. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to think about these as separate sections. So you'll have, like, the first section will be kind of maybe summarizing the plot of the films, and then the second section will be building that background about disability representation. And then you could have a section where you're talking about the models and stereotypes of disability, just to give your audience that background that they need. And then the meat of your project will be this, like, how authentic is that representation, giving examples. You can talk about intersectionality, so where and how do issues of intersectionality show up. And then a separate section will be your personal reflection. I want you to think about your own feelings about it, and then what this project has meant to you. Like, what did you learn from it? What did you like about it? What was challenging? And then lastly, the last section would be your Rotten Tomatoes review. So in the style of Rotten Tomatoes, you're going to share your thoughts about the films and then rate it on a scale of 0 to 100, and justify your score. Then I want you to share some suggestions for future disabled and non-disabled viewers to consider before they watch the films. So again, your essay has to cover all of these things, but you can group them in whatever way makes sense to you. Okay. How it will be evaluated will be the depth and clarity of your analysis, whether you use specific examples from both films, how you engage the models and stereotypes of disability, your ability to reflect and really critically analyze the films, and then just your organization, grammar, and citation of sources, which, because it's writing intensive, is an important aspect. Okay, so I would say review the course readings and use our textbook as a resource, and then look for some scholarly articles, disability advocacy resources. Um, and you can actually do a Google search for films with disabled characters to get some idea on the ones that you might like to use. So, and also, I'll want to know which films you're thinking about so I can kind of help guide you. So there's likely going to be a Padlet where you're going to post the films that you're using um, to kind of, so I can kind of maybe help guide this a bit. Okay, so that is the outline of your real disabilities analysis project. If you have specific questions about it, um, please let me know. I'm happy to help with that. But what I'd like you to do really early on is be thinking about the two films that you would like to use. That's most important at this point. So module 2 is where you're starting to think about the films that you would like to use and be able to identify which films they are.